Hey guys, we're back and I'm finally going to do it. I know I've been talking about it a little bit for a couple months, but talk a little bit about third person aiming. So, it's a skill that I'll be honest, you're never going to be perfect at. At least I don't think you are. The only reason I say that is I know I'm not. It's something I'm always working on, something I'm trying to get better at always. But just kind of in depth on how I like to approach it. So, I'm just going to use the LTTB as basis because it has everything I need in terms of equipment. Just cover equipment real quick. You're obviously running vertical stabilizers helps quite a bit for that on-the-move shooting. So you kind of want to have those on most of your tanks, especially light tanks, mediums. For perks and stuff, the ones that help are Smooth Ride, and then I believe Snapshot helps as well. But yeah, those two really do help with the gun handling, with turret rotation, because you obviously turn the turret most of the time, and also on the move shooting. You could also argue some of the ground resistance perks help as well, just because they let you go a little faster on poor terrain, and a lot of the maps have those kind of rough areas where you really want to avoid try to dogfighting, especially that light tank dogfighting. But that's the perks, stuff like that. Controls, settings. You can see mine are very low. I'm not recommending that everybody use that though. I'd say find your setting, find your sensitivity, and stick with it. What worked for you? Yeah. Also, I turn aim assist off because it has a tendency to just lock on to, not lock on, but kind of focus more on the center of the tank. And if that tank is moving that you're shooting at, you're going to miss. It's going to go behind them, and like I said, it has a tendency to drag towards the middle of the tank you're aiming at. So if they're moving, you're moving, you kind of want that off. But again, I just want to touch the sensitivity a little bit more. I know mine's very low, and I know some may say, okay, I'm going to try to emulate you and do exactly as you do. I really, it's the same kind of principle with the minimap. I wouldn't do that. If it works for you, great. You found your sensitivity. But I just recommend you find what works for you and stick with it and practice with that. So that's my kind of big tip. Also, pretty important to know what your tank's shell velocity is. So something like the LTTB shoots at around 1,000 meters a second. It's pretty good. It's not as good as something like the Object 140. It has about 1,500 on the APCR. But where it really comes in handy to know the shell velocity difference is when you're playing stuff like the Turtle, the Hawk 12, stuff like that. That was such as the Turtle only has 615 meters a second on the shell velocity, and only like I looked at the Hawk 12's HEP rounds. They're only 300 meters a second. Granted, you don't want to be firing those on the move very much, anyways, because they literally have an arc to them. But, yeah, just some kind of basic things to keep in mind when you're firing on the move, especially knowing, I don't have to say you have to know the exact shell velocity, but get an idea of how far you have to lead tanks that are moving. It really helps. I can't say it's something I've practiced like outright, but it's just something I've learned as playing these tanks over and over and over again. It just kind of, you get used to it, and it just kind of comes, and you get accustomed to what the tank's shell velocity is like, just overall. Now, we're into the gameplay. With gameplay, it's just on proving grounds, because getting actual gameplay and showing what I'm talking about is a little difficult, so enjoy the bots. One thing I do kind of wish the gameplay here is that there's no light tanks on this version. I kind of regret that, but we'll make do with it. And again, another thing, they're not going to behave quite like actual players most of the time. And a lot of times they just kind of stop and get circled and just turn the turrets. Not what happens most of the time. And if that does happen in ranked battles, I'll be honest, I'm not free aiming like I do here. Like you'll see in this comment. If I was actually circling somebody like this and they're just standing still, I'm just going to RBRT them. I'm just going to do that because I know my shell is going to hit it that close and I can get away with it. Here, I'm doing a bit of a mix. But I'm trying to showcase the third-person aiming, and you can see that I'm being very light on the controls at this point. Just kind of hovering over center mass of the tank. Faster tanks, you got to be aware of that. It's not going to happen. They turn too fast, they react too quickly for you to really aim for drive wheels or anything like that. You can actually get away with more of the drive wheel type shots, which you can do in third-person aiming. It requires a lot of patience and an understanding of what your shell can actually do, but you can do it against some heavy tanks. You don't have to totally stop and aim in. You can just generally aim for that general spot. If you're in a kind of a derp scout, you can get away with it a lot easier, because you can just aim third person in the general direction of that drive wheel and you should track them. So something like the turtle, you can get away with it a lot easier. Now, something not quite third, more just aiming related, and something I do, and you may see it in gameplay, is a lot of times when I'm looking at a tank, I will generally actually just auto lock onto them and then I will start aiming in. Not always, but it's something I have kind of picked up on, I think, that I do occasionally, in terms of just acquiring the target quickly. I don't believe it will, I could be wrong here because I'm terrible at stats, but it will not auto lock onto somebody who's behind hard cover that can't be destroyed. If their entire tank is totally behind cover, don't believe that's the case. But if the cover is destructible, or there's a part of their tank sticking out, even if it's tiny, I think it will auto lock onto them. I hope that's right. But yeah, it just in general, I do have a tendency to auto lock onto somebody first, and then I'll adjust my aim accordingly. Now you can see with third person aim, when you're standing still, you can hit people from far away, but again, you're just going to hit the tank possibly. And it really, that kind of situation, it's like the 110 or SC, whatever. You should just be aiming in first person. Third person is really, I really stress, is more for circling tanks, especially in light tanks, mediums. I don't recommend using it on a regular basis, like in a heavy tank. Not really viable. The only time I really do it is maybe a snapshot or something like that, on a quick moving target, but even still, it's not really something I'd recommend all the time doing. And again, I really wish I had a good gameplay to showcase all this, but it doesn't get used that much. So I kind of wanted to show a little longer showcase of it. Again, it's a little bit more difficult, like it's a lot more difficult against tanks that are moving very quickly. So other light tanks, it's very, very difficult, mainly because it's also a combination, not just your speed and accuracy on the move, but also your turret rotation. You can just start turning your turret and you won't be able to get shot on each other occasionally. So yeah, it's very difficult to learn that, or not learn, but to do it consistently. It's just something that is learned. And just practice, and get used to trying to use it, especially stuff like that even. It's something I could even work on there, like that Tiger 2 shot. If I just RBLT'd onto him there, it would just go right into his upper plate and not pen. But instead, I can actually sort of aim it there at the lower plate. Not recommended. I don't know how many times that shot's actually going to come off, but you can kind of aim for spots on the tank where it's actually going to pen. So right now, if I RBRT'd onto him, it would probably hit his upper plate. But since I saw his turret, I can actually free aim onto the turret and get a shot that has a much better chance of actually penning and doing some damage, rather than just bouncing off harmlessly. So, it's a good skill. It's something, it's very hard to describe in words how to get better at it, other than, like I said, just doing it. And again, it's something even like that. I know I've already said it, but it's just something that I've still work on. And honestly, that's the only way you're going to get better. So, and like I said, just really, find the sensitivity that works for you. Can't stress that enough. Get used to it, comfortable. Get familiar with your tanks, what their shell velocities are, get the feeling of what it's like. So whether it's the Hawk 12, T1LT that has very fast 1200 meters per second APCR rounds, and just practicing leading targets. Again, that's the biggest thing. Don't RBRT on somebody you're just doing a circle fight with, because most of the time it's going to miss, especially if they're in a low light. Now, it can kind of depend on their turning radius and such. They're a really, really slow turning tank. Yeah, you can get away with it sometimes. But a lot of the time, you want to focus on leading your target. And that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you next time.